Muy buenas tardes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the BYU University. They asked me to talk about the non-governmental institutions and how to preserve the right of or the freedom of religion here in the American continent. Well, my experience as an attorney, which is the reason my comments they'll have to be taken in my respective as an attorney, someone that has been dedicated, especially to the things that they have could in order to preserve the right of expression, the freedom of religion, and in my own country. Also, my experience comes from the litigation in Chile, and they have to be with my country, but it maybe applies to the other American countries. I wanted to change the presentation. I was really tempted, especially listening to the many good ones that they have been given. And, the words from Dr. Howery, they've been spinning around because in Latin America, we have strong states and weak people. And I think that is so true. And that's why we live in Latin America, that our states can be very powerful and society, they have a little bit of participation in the defense of their own freedoms. Now, as a preamble to my comments, what do I mean by religious beliefs? I think what we have heard in these past 2 days, they give testimony that in reality there is not a discussion that the freedom of religion is asking that the state does not becomes in a forceful way and tell us that we need to believe in this or that, and that is basically that's the minimum that we need to where we can start. However, on the other hand, in Latin America is something that is already resolved, and we can say it in peace that in any state this could be a topic to talk about, but also that could give you a false trust. And that way we can think that that's the freedom of religion is already secure, but it's not. However, when we take a further step and we ask, so what's the next step in order to get the freedom of religion for every person? We don't have any agreement on what is the power that that particular firm has. And I'm talking about in which the state tries to limit or try to impose the conduct to a certain person, and also specifically in respect with the believer has to violate or break their conscience. We have opposition in the symposium, like the one from Australia. Obviously, we don't have an agreement on which one is the appropriate equilibrium in to exercise the discrimination and the freedom of religion, and that's very clear. Into my judgment, that is the conflict more severe that is growing in Latin America, or at least here in my country, and it is very considerable in society. We don't understand that we see this particular need to practice this freedom of religion because I've always had it, but sometimes we rule it out because sometimes we believe that it can become something that we are going to reclaim. But no, so sometimes, there might not be an oppression when it comes to that. But sometimes I ask, how come this is not a how come this is something that we shouldn't be talking about? And I think that we've been talking about this, especially with the conscience and the practices, which, for example, the cooperation between good and bad, like it's in abortion, or sexually orientation, or conduct with adultery, or having sex with the same gender. Also, talking about the education for the children, if the education is totally different than the freedom of religion, that it's violating something, and it has to be treated in the same way instead of a separate way, and they enjoy both. Now, that particular right to their children is it's a threat in a lot of way, in a lot of aspects, depending on the sex education class, because it's a phenomenon that all the American countries are facing, and it's not just about teaching sex orientation, but there is also that also what they're trying to impose and to teach the identity of a gender or same attraction gender and so forth. But sometimes, I find people from the Congress that are here present, perhaps the possibility that they may take to their countries that they can take this as a incitation in a different country, as a hate discussion, and sometimes that's what we talk about, and we're trying not to impose this, but sometimes in 2013 I believe that this was adopted. It hasn't been ratified, but it is a danger for Latin America. Where are these problems coming from? Fundamentally from the local governments, national, the Congress, and I also will say, and I think it was from the Court of Human Rights, which has moved in recent years from its previous phase. Why? Because we can come to find out how these issues have gone on the first phase, and that they did good in our in Latin American continent, but also on the second phase, we can call an ideology in which there is an advance to impose with no absolute discrimination. It probably will not let you use you to rationalize, and perhaps the abortion, and to violate the law of the conscience, and everything has come from this different court, the American Court of Human Rights, and it has only issued one decision decided specifically on religion freedom grounds, but instead the court has issued a growing amount of decisions on non-discriminatory, many of which are born. So, for example, there's only one case that has been referred to the freedom of religion, and even like that, just to see, and what are you doing, then we come and find another scenario where a president doesn't find a lot of comfort when it comes to the freedom of religion. Now, my mission, working from the government point of view, is to pretty much to keep the rights of the believers and not to violate or trespass their trust, and also include all those particular cultural areas, and we can see that this is happening on a daily basis, especially with the human ecology. I'm talking about the abortion, the families in general, or what we could call the sexual moral values, and also the non-government facilities that are, maybe some of them are involved, and I want to say vigilance. And vigilance, why is it vigilance? Why should we have that? Because we need to have a better knowledge and maybe awareness, because we're more aware of stuff, and especially what's going on in our country now. When there's changes de igual manera, it doesn't happen because of an invisible force that it moves. It's a product of what humans do. So all the changes in the legislature that we have seen, they have done there or catalyzed by a human force that has been in that particular area. And in my experience, I've seen organizations that are non-government, and they have made those changes. And it's been the result in our countries because of interest or because of activists that they have proven to push all this interest, and they have been able to make it look good before everybody. At the same time, let's make conscious of how these things are changing, and also we can probably get a diagnostic of how we can prevent future results that it might be the other way around. Also, we have something that there's two things that provokes. We have Artavia case and Atala. So at the same time, we are affected in Latin America because of the pollination that has been transferred. And at the same time, these presidents here, they are taking them to their own Congress or to their own court, and also they come to find out that they impose these things like if it was a human right, which is not, which I question all the time. And that's how it is in the Convention Against Discrimination and Intolerance. However, the second is the action. I mean, we will have to do that. We need to do that. We have had conversation with a lot of people here on the symposium that they have had a lot of things, that they have mobilized themselves to the different families and to different religions, but instead against it. Now, my answer is this. The groups are considered to be in the religion that they may allow people to enter in the temples in their homes, but you know what? It's not like that. And some of them, they have had a plan with coordination, with dedication, and then I would say being professional in order to push these particular agendas. And at the end, is someone that has to be very concluded, has to be very clean, and they are formed in the popular culture so people can accept it and we represent it publicly. And then in their respective, there is nothing else. We can define it in the courts or in the Congress or in the media, and then we are leaving the entire field open so others can come and push their interests. Specifically, when it comes to action, it is possible that we need to take charge of what we've done. I think the organizations from not the governments are fundamental. If they don't exist, then we should create them. And that's my conclusion that I think that is more relevant that I'm trying to portray to you. That we, if we want to promote the religion, let's do it. And let's do it. And if those organizations don't exist, let's create them. So we may put people that they are dedicated and that we may go toward and be able against this legislature or this government or this Congress. So because we have them, but they don't make any good. I mean, they don't do any good if they're just sitting there. Now, I have against two directors here of universities, and that I think about what will happen here in the United States, that they generate clinics, that they promote the freedom of religion or the freedom of expression, and then translate that mission and dedication into participate actively in cases that there is things of justice that need to be promoted around the world. Now, I'm thinking about my country. I think we have something that's fundamental, and these are the universities that I have contact with. It's not a topic, it is something that we could work on, and it will be very important in the society in order to defend the freedoms. Also, it is very important that there could be some common ground in order for the freedom of religion. Why? Because it's as states, we do not strengthen the common grounds with religion, then we are leaving the open door, like I said, so it can be defined in other terms. Right now, the court, like I mentioned before, they have not been able to touch different topics because there hasn't been that particular talk, and also, there's probably going to become, sooner or later, there's going to be a conflict here and a conflict there. And before that particular scenario, the court has something else that is called non-discriminatory, that does not allow any intervention that might be discriminatory, but there's nothing about the freedom of religion. So the states and the public, we are trying to interpret the American Convention on how it happened and how it will happen in the court. And when the verdict comes, the ones that are affected is us. Finally, and like I said, one of the threats that are more important right now to the freedom of religion is our own continent. It has to be with the convention, with the discrimination, because it doesn't matter how good the intention might be or the instrument that we need to use or the practice that it generates, we have to generate a new human right that it could come and give everyone the possibility to be protected by the state against any manifestation or acts that is not tolerant. And it is very extensive. It is very, it's just so big that it can allow any type of incident. And right here in Latin America, we know that those instruments that are present and that are open to abuse, they could be used just for that. And we have to be more vigilant to that. If there is something that you can take out of my brief presentation, it will be that you may take conscious of these threats that are available, and especially about this discrimination, about resistance, study it, and at the same time, oppose yourself, be against it. The Congress, the courts, speaking with your own government, but if it's not us from the civil area, nobody else is going to act upon it. Thank you.